Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sam, and today's video I'm going to be sharing with you some beach reads. Now Hannah from Hannah Blackwell, she asked a bunch of other YouTubers to do this video as well. So there's a giant collab going on. So make sure that you go and check out everyone's videos, and thank you so much, Hannah, for asking me to be a part of this. I love a good beach read. Okay, now for me, I have a few different categories that I'm going to recommend to you. So a beach read is something that is going to be fun, something that is going to keep your attention, something that you are going to kind of just like fly through. Okay, so I have some books that are more sort of on the nose, that either take place in summer or have summer in the title. I have some just fun new releases. I also have some fun like fantasy romances, and then some thrillers that I think would be good for you to read at the beach. So let's just get started. I'm going to start out with the like on the nose recs. Okay, so the first one is one that I have not recommended to you all in quite a while, but if you've been around, you know my love of this book and you know my love for this author. Between Hello and Goodbye by Emma Scott. Now in this book we are following Faith and Asher. Faith lives, I believe, in Seattle, and she's just not doing the best. She is sort of not necessarily failing at her job, but she's just having a lot of issues with responsibility, and her bosses tell her, hey, you need to take a vacation. So she decides that she's going to go to Hawaii. And there she meets Asher, who is I believe he's a first responder and a firefighter. She goes hiking. I believe it's the first day of her trip, and ends up spraining her ankle, and he has to come and rescue her. And he feels bad because it's the first day of her trip. And so he kind of, takes her food and decides that he's going to take her around this beautiful island that he calls home. And they start sort of a summer fling, both of them knowing that this is where it's going to end, because I'm going back to the city and you're staying here because this is where your family is. And so this is sort of like right person, wrong time, and very emotional. I just adore this book so much, and I think it would be perfect for the summer, perfect for a beach read, because it takes place in Hawaii and this cover is stunning. Okay, then the next book that I have is People We Meet on Vacation. Now this is actually a newer read for me, and I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did, because this is a friends to lovers romance, and that is not a trope that I typically love. This one, however, this worked for me. So we are following Poppy and Alex. Now they meet in college, and they could not be more different. Poppy is a wild child. She's very just free-spirited. Alex is very much by the book, very structured. And these two, they, form an unlikely friendship. And from that friendship, they start going on these vacations every summer, and they get into all these different shenanigans, and they just develop a really, really strong bond. Well, at the beginning of this book, they have not been friends for quite some time, and Poppy is not okay with it. And so she decides to reach out to Alex and ask him if he wants to go on vacation with her again. And things pick up from there. I loved the flashbacks that we got in this. I think they were perfect. And if you know me, you know that I do not typically love books that have flashbacks. This worked though. I loved getting to see them as they got to know each other, when they first became friends, and all of the just adventures that they went on. This was so much fun, and I think, again, perfect for the beach. So the next book that I have to recommend for you guys, again, if you've been around for a while, I have recommended this before, but it's just so good. The Summer We Fell by Elizabeth O'Rourke. Now, in this book, we are following Luke and Juliet. Now, Luke and Juliet meet one summer when Juliet is actually living with and dating Caleb, who is Luke's best friend. Juliet has not had the best childhood, and so she moves in with her boyfriend's family, and they do not treat her very well at all. They're very religious. They have just a certain way of living and certain expectations that they put on her, and Juliet feels very stifled. But on the other hand, she also feels very grateful for everything that they have given her, because no one in her life is doing that for her. So she's very much struggling with that. And Luke just happens to be there for this summer as well, and he sees a very different side of Juliet. He sees the side that she's not letting people see. And these two, they don't really get off on the right foot at all. He doesn't really like her, and I think it's more that he's just upset that she's not speaking up for herself. And I know a lot of people really complained about Juliet in this book, but she's in between a rock and a hard place. But this book has so much angst, so much angst. And then in the present day, you're seeing them come back together for reasons, and all these feelings start coming back up. And I just really loved this book more than I ever thought that I would. Okay, next up I have Not a Romance. This is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So in this book we are actually following the Riva family, who you meet in, I believe it's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So Mick Riva is a very popular actor, and this is following his children and then kind of how they got together. So I do believe there's the POV of the mother in here. I'm not sure. It's been quite a while since I've read this book, but this is actually taking place in the 1980s at a house party, and you're seeing all the children's different perspectives, and you're getting flashbacks to their life and their relationships with their dad and how it's so different and how it's sort of shaped them into the family that they are and the people that they are. Oh my God. This, again, was a book that I did not expect to love, but I absolutely loved it. I think this is a very underrated Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Not a lot of people talk about this one, and more people need to. Okay, so now we're going to get into some new releases that I think would be perfect to read at the beach if you have not read them already. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Learn Your Lesson by Candy Steiner. Oh, this book... Will Perry, Daddy P, he has worked his way into my favorite, top favorite Candy heroes, of all time. He was so freaking good. So we're following Will and Chloe. Now, Will is the goalie for the Tampa Bay Ospreys, I think is the hockey team that is in here. Yes. And he has a daughter, so he is a single father, and he is very, very stoic, very shut off from the world, and that is rubbing off on his daughter as well. Chloe is actually his daughter's teacher, and she brings her to the rink one day when they are practicing because no one came to pick her up. And Will is just like, I'm sorry, my nanny quit, I didn't really have anyone to pick her up, and this whole situation. And Chloe actually takes it upon herself to step in and be like, I can help you, let me help you. So she becomes the nanny for his daughter. She moves in with them, and things go from there. This was freaking fantastic. I could not put this book down. The perfect blend of spice in here, because some of the other books in this series I think were leaning a little too heavy on the spice. This one did not. It felt so good. It felt like reading the old Candy again, and I loved it. Okay, and Will Perry is my favorite kind of hero. If you have not met him yet, please read it. Read this. Okay, read it. So the next book that I have is also a new release, but it is very also on the nose. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I feel like everyone has probably read this by now, but if you have not, now, do it now. Do it now, okay? This is better than yours truly, in my opinion. This one was way better. I, again, loved this book so much. So in this book, we are following Emma and Justin. Now, Emma and Justin meet because of a Reddit thread that is actually posted about Justin. He thinks that he is cursed. So every woman that he dates, once they break up, they move on to meet the woman that they are going to, or the man that they are going to marry. And Emma, I think it's her friend, is actually reading it one day while they're at work. And she's like, this sounds like me. This happens to me. So she ends up messaging Justin and they start talking. And then she decides to go to meet him in, I believe, is it Milwaukee? I think it's Milwaukee. And they strike up a deal that just for the summer, let's date each other. That way, when we go our separate ways, hopefully the curse is broken and we will meet our, respective soulmates. Things don't work out that way. This book just has so much heart, such realistic characters, such good balance between the romance, between the more like deeper emotions, and like you really get into these characters and into their stories. I know a lot of people say that this feels a little women's fiction. I think it was the perfect balance. And, there's some humor added in here too, along with all of the deep, heavy things that are happening in this book. And then the last new release that I think would be perfect to read at the beach this summer is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Now, in this book, we are following Daphne and Miles. Daphne and Miles meet because their exes are actually getting married. So they actually end up dumping both Daphne and Miles for each other. And then they get an invitation saying, hey, we're getting married. And so Daphne and Miles, they start living together because Daphne is kicked out of her apartment and she has nowhere else to go. And she's like, hey, I know you have an extra room. Can I stay with you? And when you first meet Miles, you're like, okay, who is this dude? Why is he the love interest? But when you dive deeper into who he is, great. I loved him. This is probably my new favorite Emily Henry book. She, I think, knocked it out of the park with this one. Again, people will say that this leans more women's fiction than romance. I personally think it was the perfect balance. Just enough of the deep, raw, real emotions in here, balanced with romance, balanced with some funny, very humorous times. So, again, if you haven't read this, now is the time. Okay, now for some fun little fantasy romance books that you're just, once you sink your teeth into them, you can't stop. They're just fun, easy to understand. The world is nothing too complex, and they're a little spicy. So you're going to be burning up at the beach in more ways than one. So the first one that I have is A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. Now in this book, we are following Arwen, I forget exactly what kingdom she lives in, but these are all, every kingdom in here is based on a like stone. So she ends up going to the Onyx Kingdom where she meets the king of that kingdom. So she is actually a very talented healer. And her brother at the beginning of this book is a soldier who is fighting in the war for her kingdom. And he runs away and he is being chased by the Onyx Kingdom's soldiers. And she tries to run away, her mother and her brother, but they leave something very important behind. So Arwen runs back to get it. But she encounters the Onyx soldiers and they take her back to their kingdom and things go from there. Again, like I said, this is not too complex. You would really be able to get into this and just fly through it. And book 2 is out already. So, if you're on vacation, you can just binge both books 1 and 2. And the next fantasy romance that I have to recommend to you is A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. This is actually a completed trilogy and they are all fairly short. So again, if you're going on a vacation, get all 3. I do believe all 3 of them are on Kindle Unlimited, so that's even better. So in this book, we are following Adara. Now, Adara is, I believe, what they call star blessed. I think she is like marked with stars. And for her whole life, she has known that she is going to marry the prince and the prince is going to like determine the fate of the kingdom, that sort of thing. And she hates this prince. He is pretty terrible. And when he comes to collect her, she actually ends up meeting his brother. And is she going to marry this prince that she's been betrothed to? Or is she going to run off with his brother? I don't know. You'll have to read it and find out. This is super fun. Again, super spicy. The world is nothing too hard to understand, and I think you would just have a ton of fun reading this on the beach. Okay, now let's get into some thrillers. I know that some people don't really like to read thrillers because, I don't know, maybe you get a little scared, but the beach, in the daylight, in the heat, surrounded by everybody, I think would be the perfect time to read a really good, fast-paced thriller, something that's going to keep you on your toes. So the first one that I have is Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. So in this book, we are following Marin. Now, Marin is married to her childhood sweetheart, high school sweetheart, college sweetheart, I don't know. She's married. They've been married for quite a while, and they have a son. And one day while she is shopping, her son goes missing. And she has just been a shell of herself ever since. And she's determined to find her son because she feels that, the police investigators, they're not doing enough. So she does it. She is a mama on a mission, and she's going to find her son, and she uncovers a lot along the way. I read this book in a day. It was fabulous. Again, I feel like this is one, though, that if you've read a lot of thrillers, it may not be very exciting for you. You may be able to figure out kind of what's happening, but I kind of like a good predictable thriller every now and then. I just think they're fun. This is a popcorn read, and what better of a time to read like a popcorn thriller than when you're sitting on the beach. So the next thriller that I have is by Lisa Jewell, and that is None of This Is True. So in this book, we are following two different women who meet on their birthdays, and they share a birthday. So they are birthday twins. So we're following Josie and Alex. Now, one of them has a podcast. I don't remember which one. And she talks about women and just spotlights women and, things that they have done and what they have overcome. And so I believe it's Alex. She goes to Josie, who has the podcast, and is like, would you be interested in telling my story? And she does more than just tell her story. She really infiltrates every part of Josie's life, and there's a lot that she is hiding, and this is pretty twisty, and I loved it. So the last book that I'm going to recommend to you today, I have it in the thriller category, but this is kind of a weird one to place because this isn't thrilling in sort of the same aspect as Little Secrets or None of This Is True. This is just disturbing. And I could not look away from this book. Could not look away. I had to know what was going to happen. In the end, oh my God. I mean, there were things in this book that literally my jaw dropped because I'm like, I just read that. What the heck happened? So this is The Push by Ashley Audrain. And even more incredible is that this was her first book. Oh my God. The toll that this book will take on you it's wild, okay? So we're following Blythe, who is a mother. And you kind of get her mother's story and then her grandmother's story. So this is kind of like a generational story of these mothers, but you're really following Blythe. And Blythe has a daughter who she is failing to connect with. And is it the daughter out to get her, or is it Blythe just not knowing how to be a mother because of how she was raised, or because of how her mother was raised? So is it that, or is her daughter just evil? And then she ends up getting pregnant again with a little boy, and she bonds with him immediately, and he just loves his mom so much. And so it's wild to read. Okay, this book, if you're a mom, I think this book will hit with you. I think it will hit. I kind of want to reread this book because I think about this a lot. Truly, this is a book that I think about often. So if you haven't read this and you want to be like, what the hell? The Push. It's so freaking good. Definitely give it a shot. So those are all of the books that I have to recommend to you guys. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know a book that you would recommend someone to read in the summer. If you have made it to this point in the video and you'd like to let me know, leave me a sun emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.